Well, hi, my name is Matthew Gein. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Faulkner University, and I hope you enjoyed that very over the top and slightly dramatic countdown. Was not the one I meant to choose, but it's the one that came up instead. But thank you so much for carving a little bit of time to join me this evening. I know this semester is got to be insane for you guys. It's probably the senior year for you, and then you throw COVID in, and then throw in maybe a side job or sports or anything like that, and there's literally not enough time in the day. In fact, not quite sure how y'all guys even sleep at night, or maybe you're just like me. It's been a rough day. It's been a long day, and so the fact that you are tuning in right now or catching this later on down the line, I really appreciate that. And I really think that the future you is going to appreciate that as well. So, what I would like to do this evening is just get straight to the main point of the conversation. College is just around the corner. And that big question that hangs over almost every student's head is, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to finance this? And what I would like to do tonight is share a little information that I wish I would have known back in the day. So, when I graduated high school, I was blessed by my parents to give me an opportunity they'd never received themselves. My dad was a Marine, and he spent his entire time in the military right after high school, and then uh, had many other jobs outside of college careers. And then my mom herself actually went straight into the workforce after high school. So really, the opportunity I received was one they never got to enjoy themselves. Now that said, as you can imagine, there was a lot of things we didn't even know to ask. We weren't quite sure where to start, where to begin. So, if you allow me, I would like to be the person I wish I had all those years ago. And what I want to do is kind of help you create a game plan of sorts and understand a way to break down this almost impossible task it feels like sometimes that just feels overwhelming and big, and make it a little bit more manageable. And really, by breaking it down to little pieces, that's going to be the best way to handle this. So a couple of things I want to make sure I address first. Let me go ahead and bring up my presentation this evening here. And let's make that full screen because you don't want to see my face the entire time. But we want to go ahead and just kind of note a few things. So you are probably by now used to all the different brochures that go out about campus life and just how gorgeous people look and how amazing things look like they could be. And that's true. The potential is certainly there. But as we mentioned earlier, the big question over the head is it worth it? Is this something we would want to go ahead and spend our time and invest our time into? And honestly, I believe there is some value still in college. In fact, there's a lot of value to be said. Just wanted to show a quick research that was done not that long ago by the College Board, and I guess they are a little bit biased in this conversation. But basically, if you go to a website called Education Pays 2019, you would see the research done that shows how much a college education really does pay off for a student over the years. I think now more than ever, there's a certain culture on social media especially, just reminding people that college is not the only route, and that's absolutely true. In fact, if you are kind of stuck between college and a trade job, I actually want to encourage you to go ahead and sit down and really understand where your passion is, what really truly makes you happy. I'm going to go ahead and venture, though, if you're tuning into this right now, that a majority of you are really considering some type of career that does involve a college degree. And as you can see from this data here, even though there are going to be a fair share of students who straight from high school go into the workforce and make themselves a decent amount of money, especially when you compare them to their college counterparts, once you hit that age around 38 to 40, there is a vast difference in the income levels that is to be had. And so when you are asking the question, is it worth it to get a college degree? The data is showing that it really is. Now, that said, we want to be smart about that, and we want to go ahead and create ourselves a game plan, like I mentioned. And that's what I would like to do with you this evening. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, also, let me go ahead and say there is going to be a little chat box on the side. So if there is a specific question that you would like us to address and make sure that you are able to have an answer for, please go ahead and just type that in, and we'll do our best to get to it. And if you don't see it, if I don't get to it, I'm also going to go ahead and throw up my email address as well. So please go ahead and feel free to ask questions in the chat box or anything else off to the side there. All right, let's go ahead and get back into the slideshow here. So first and foremost, we have a little illustration I want to share. I used to be a youth minister, and I really believe in the power of an illustration. Imagine your balance for college like a tabletop. Any good tabletop is going to go ahead and have some legs to support it. It's going to be able to lean on, ideally, four legs. And that's what we're going to go ahead and discuss this evening. Four legs that are potentially there for you to lean on. Now, I understand that for some of you viewers, you might be in a different state, which might eliminate one of these legs for you to stand on. But that just means we got to make one of the other legs stronger. So if you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and start off with one of the ones that is available to everybody, and that is the FAFSA. Now, as most of your guidance counselors have probably told you, this is a very important process for college. This is where it all begins in all reality. So just to go ahead and give a little clarification to simplify it as best I can, what the FAFSA is one giant application for about 5 different things that are available to students. I'll say that one more time. One giant application for 5 different things that the government has to offer. So what's going to be able to happen for you seniors right now, and if you are a junior, just hold off a year, but come October 1 of 2021, seniors, please go to studentaid.ed.gov. And what you're going to want to go ahead and do is create an FSA ID along with your parents. Y'all each have to go ahead and create an account. Please save this information. Keep it handy because what's going to end up happening is that it's going to get lost. So put it in your notes, put it in a location that you're going to be able to obtain later on. But it's really important to keep this information handy. Now, once you do have your account set up, what your family is going to be needing to do, and forgive, there is an update that needs to be made here on step 3. Your family is going to be using the 2020 tax information. So what FAFSA calls that is your prior tax info. Now, it's no secret that 2020 was a hot mess for families across the world, and especially here in the country. Jobs were in flux. There are some families that unfortunately were laid off, and maybe we're just on an indefinite hiatus, but it is very, very obvious that families were affected. So I want to go ahead and say this right off the bat. The government does have a way for a family to be reevaluated by information other than 2020, because 2020 stats may not be too bad, but come April of next year, y'all might be in a different situation than you were previously. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to have the opportunity to do something called a professional judgment. And basically what this professional judgment is an opportunity to raise your hand and say, hey, Mr. Government, there have been some updates in my family's income. Would you mind reevaluating us again? So that is an opportunity available to your family. So if you are thinking, oh, they're going to be using my 2020 tax info, that's not good, that's not an accurate depiction of our situation, no worries. We're going to be able to help you go ahead and reevaluate. Now, this is a service that most schools should be able to help out with. I can't really speak on behalf of every school, obviously, but I know it is a service that Faulkner offers that we would gladly help you go through that paperwork, because let's be honest, who wants to deal with more government paperwork? We will help you through that process of being professionally judged. Now, that all said, let's say you do get your FAFSA in. What are going to be some things that are available to you? As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 different types of federal aid, so let's jump into those. The first is going to be something called Pell. The second is called SEOG. The third is work study. Fourth, Stanford Loan. I know that seems like a dirty word, but what we want to go ahead and know what it is first. And then the Parent Plus loan lumped into that same category. So we're going to start off with Pell. Basically, this is that category that everybody wishes they get to be a part of. Pell Money is free money from the government. So as I mentioned before, they're going to go ahead and look at your tax info, your household income. And good, bad, or indifferent, what they're going to end up doing is giving you something called an EFC, an estimated family contribution. And this is what the government's saying your family ought to be able to contribute towards a college education. And trust me, again, as a family that the government said, hey, you made too much, and we're looking around and not understanding what they were telling us, a handful of families, a fair amount of families, are going to be disqualified for this free money. However, several families every single year are pleasantly surprised that they actually do qualify for something, especially if you already have an older child in college. It is even more vital that you go ahead and do this FAFSA. In fact, this is one of the most missed opportunities for free money. So let me go ahead and take a step back here real fast and kind of paint you a picture. The fact is, I think so many families focus on one school to provide the most amount of financial aid, and that's how they're going to choose their school. I operated that way. And looking back, that may not have been the best game plan, because if you think about it, that's one source, and that one source is trying to take care of many different students at the same time. So what I should have done, and what I'm encouraging you to do as well, is diversify. Go ahead and change up the different sources available to you. Because let's be honest, it's easier to ask multiple places for a little bit of money versus one place for a lot of money. So I definitely want to encourage you to go ahead and diversify, and go ahead and start with the FAFSA. Let's see what free money is available to you and your family. The great news is that if you do qualify for Pell, there's also something called SEOG. And the wonderful thing about SEOG is that it's just supplemental money. It's an extra money that goes along with your Pell. For a lot of schools, such as Faulkner, we are able to award that to families that do their FAFSA early. So quick plug-in for Faulkner right here. There are two wins to be had about doing your FAFSA early. One, if you qualify for the Pell, again, you get SEOG. This is also free money from the government that you never had to pay back. So do your FAFSA earlier just for that one reason. And two, spoiler alert, we do offer this year a FAFSA initiative scholarship. So if you turning in your FAFSA before December 1st, we will gladly award you a $500 scholarship of our own that is going to be stackable with our other scholarships. We'll get there in a minute, don't worry. But SEOG is going to go ahead and be one of these other resources available to you from the government that's absolutely free. Next is work study. So this one kind of is a little bit more interesting. It's not necessarily free money, but it's not a loan either. Work study is, in its simplest terms, a job the school provides that the government pays for. I'll say it again. It's a job the school provides that the government pays for. So whether it be, for instance, again, using some Faulkner examples here, we have a wonderful law school. Perhaps you're working in the library for that law school, or maybe you're working at Cafe Siena, which, by the way, absolutely amazing coffee, absolutely incredible scones too. Maybe you're working there. These jobs are going to be provided by the school, first come, first serve, and you do have to qualify based off FAFSA. But that is a job you're getting paid for by the government. Now, a little bit of clarification here. It is a minimum wage job that's based off your hours, and these hours are meant for students. They're specifically meant for student athletes as well. So if you are thinking about a sport, if you're considering a sport, you definitely want to go ahead and keep that in mind, that this is something you could still do. What ends up happening is the government's allotting $900 for a student a semester. So potentially you're making $1,800 a year by work study, potentially, as long as you work all those hours available and if there are hours available for you to have. Here's the caveat, or not really a caveat. This is what makes it a little bit different from everything else. It's the fact that work study money does not have to be applied towards your actual bill for a school. You could go ahead, guys, seniors, those of you who are loving Taco Bell, which is right across the street for us. If you like you some Taco Bell, you could use that money from work study and go enjoy that Taco Bell. Or maybe you want to go to B-dubs with your friends. You're more than welcome to do that as well. Or maybe a little bit more practical. Maybe you actually need some gas money just to go ahead and enjoy a time with family over the weekend. By all means, work study is available for you as well. Now, all of that said, I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you also understood and encourage you, if you have work study and you have that money, I would actually encourage you to use it towards the bill. Even if it's 10% of it, it doesn't hurt to push that money forward. So one of the tips is I kind of switch gears here a little bit that I wish I did. I wish I would have saved my summertime money a little bit better. I worked a part-time job at a grocery store, bag groceries, pushing carts in the Texas heat. And that was a fun summer. Actually 4 of them. We would come back every year. And what I should have done is hold on to that paycheck a little bit better. So there's a little pro tip for you. All right. Next, Stanford Loan. So I'm going to go ahead and just give a quick overview because, again, this is one of those conversations I wish somebody would have had with me. So when it comes to Stanford loans, there are actually 3 different types. There are government-sponsored loans. There are private loans as well. And then the government offers another type called a parent loan. We're just going to dive into the first and the third very, very slightly. And then the second one, a super glance over. So I like to go ahead and call the Stanford loan by the government the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And what I mean by that is that, yes, loans are an investment that you're making in yourself. You're taking out some money now because, let's be honest, as a senior in high school, even if you're working part time, you're not making probably super solid money at the moment. But basically, this loan is going to help you pay for the bill now. That way, the future you with that college career degree is able to go ahead and pay yourself back. So that is the purpose of a loan. I think what happens these days is a lot of people use it as a crutch and not a tool. And that's very, very dangerous. Now, I do want to go ahead and keep in mind, too, that unfortunately, a lot of the news that we hear these days are really kind of pushing things out of proportion. When we hear the national debt average, they're taking into account law school, medical school, physician assistant schools, physical therapy schools, and so many other master level schools into that grand total. But I'm not going to take student loan discussions lightly because I'm actually one of those people myself that took it out. And I personally don't regret it. I absolutely loved my college experience. I've been blessed with some great jobs over the year to help me pay it back. And I'm well on my way to being debt free with that. And I look back and think it was absolutely worth it. However, two things. One, I can't speak for your family. That is going to be a conversation y'all need to have on your own. Secondly, you also need to go ahead and do it smart. In a smart way. And that's something I wish I would have gone back and again used it as a tool and not a crutch. So what we have with the student Stanford loans is technically two different loans that add up to $5,500. One of them is called subsidized. The other one's called unsubsidized. And I'm going to slow down here just a moment. Forgive me. I know I talk a little fast. That's the city in me. But subsidized basically is saying you don't have to worry about the interest rates while you are in school. The government is going to take care of those interest rates. Unsubsidized, on the other hand, there is a little bit of interest. As of right now, if I'm not mistaken, is about 3.2% interest rates, which are arguably better than some of the private loans out there. But you can take up to $5,500 your freshman year, and then every year after that, an additional $1,000. Now, there are other loan options, like I mentioned, with the government. One of them is called a Parent Plus loan. That is actually a little bit different than the Stanford loan. Let me take a step back here. A couple of things that I meant to mention. Stanford loan, this is just between the student and the government. This is not going to be under the parent's name. They're not a co-signer. I know my mom really appreciated that about the Stanford loans, is the fact that it is my responsibility. And that was a responsibility I personally was willing to take on. So the Stanford loan is just between the student and the government, and they are not expecting any type of payment till 6 months after the student is done with school. Let me clarify that verbiage a little bit. 6 months after they're done with school. Be a graduation, Lord willing, that's what we're all hoping here for. But lastly, also, you got to keep in mind that there are some students that maybe decide they want to quit, or maybe they take a break and then they end up not coming back. Do be aware that 6 months after the fact, government's going to knock on the door and start asking for small payments on that loan. So the goal is, of course, to complete it. And Faulkner is all about that. It's about wanting to make sure you reach your goals and walk away with that degree, with that handshake, and more importantly, with a sense of community. That's something we're going to wrap up with tonight. So going back to the Parent Plus loan, this one is a little bit different, as you may have guessed by the title. It is involving a parent. And so that said, the interest rates are not as good as the Stanford loan, but they're still available for you there. You really just got to have a conversation about, is this the route you want to go? Now, the good news is a Parent Plus loan, you're always going to get some type of money. What's going to end up happening is they're looking at at the parent's credit. If the parent has good credit, basically you tell them how much you need. If the parent has bad credit, well, then the student has an additional $4,000 under their name. And this is a topic we as admissions counselors would be happy to get into the weeds with as well. Now, last but not least on this conversation is alternative loans. Please do your homework on these. You can literally do a Google search, and there are way too many out there. So please be diligent. Go ahead and look up what's available to you and what's going to be a good fit for your family. Now, that was one leg, FAFSA. There's a lot of free money to be had there. But you may not notice, if you are looking at a private institution like Faulkner University, we are a private Christian school, we actually are able to tap into something called state assistance. It's the Alabama State Grant. Basically, that is available for families that can prove they've been a resident of the state for at least a year. So we as private schools don't cost any more for a student who lives down the street versus somebody who lives in Florida. But we do have this one source available to you. So what you basically have to do is prove you're an Alabama resident. Sorry, folks, you cannot wear your Bama gear or your Auburn gear. It's more along the lines of checking a driver's license and a paid bill as well. But basically, if you're able to go ahead and prove you're an Alabama resident, that is a easy $900 scholarship a year. And even though I'm saying $900, over the years, we've estimated that same amount. And guess what? It's actually been $1,000 and $1,100 the last 2 years, respectively. So it's really up to the state and their discretion. And so it is a flexible concept, but we rather be a little bit more realistic, a little bit pessimistic. I don't want to use that word, but a little bit more grounded in our estimates with our families. So just know that a second leg for those of you here in Alabama is the Alabama State Grant. All right, so let me go ahead and dive into the concept of institutional scholarships. And I feel like that's why most of you logged in here. The fact is, every school has a different personality, just like you do. And what you got to go ahead and figure out and size up is who they are and what they're about. And we understand that it takes time. So it is really important to go ahead and start looking at these things sooner rather than later. And you want to size up what the school has to do differently than another school. I plan to share a little bit of information about Faulkner and our scholarships, but please keep in mind that every school does something a little bit different, whether it be deadlines or essay requirements. But we can lump sum the concept of a school giving you money to something called institutional awards. So that's what we're going to go ahead and discuss a little bit more right now. Institutional scholarships and grants. Let's see here. All right. So, for example, we have a Faulkner Academic Award. This is specifically awarded to students, regardless with their extracurriculars. If they're doing band, choir, or an athletic, cool. But we're going to go ahead and also give them an athletic scholar, or excuse me, an academic scholarship as well. There is a small asterisk to the athletic scholarships. While most are stackable, there are some situations where the coach wants to go ahead and take that scholarship completely under their wing, which is a good thing. But we would rather try to stack scholarships because most of the time we could probably do a little bit better than what the coach's budget is allowing for. So Faulkner, we stack our scholarships, and that's a good question to ask your schools. Do you stack scholarships? If I get this one, can I get the other two in line as well? What do I qualify for? So for instance, at Faulkner University, if you happen to turn in an 18 on your ACT, you are automatically qualified for an $8,000 Dean Scholarship. And so that is $8,000 a year for you every 4 years. It would take a tank truck to lose it. Now, that is not a challenge. I don't want you to go ahead and try to lose it by failing classes, but that is an academic scholarship set aside for you specifically. As you could judge by the scale here, it does tend to go up. Please keep in mind, a little asterisk here, that this is based off last year's model. We are thinking about updating it as well, so stay tuned and kind of keep an eye if we're able to go ahead and maybe give you a little bit more money for that same ACT score you have. Just to clarify also, we are test optional this year. And unlike some other schools, we are able to go ahead and award based off GPA as well. Now, there is a little bit of a preference for ACT, not just for us, but for you as well. Typically, there tends to be a little bit more money to be had if you're turning in an ACT or an SAT score, or there's a third test called CLT for the record. But if you have a GPA, we could go ahead and accept you because, again, we understand COVID has really messed things up. You may not be able to get a test anytime soon. So we would gladly accept you, and we will also gladly award you. Just reach out to your admissions counselor to have a deeper discussion of what your GPA would look like once you have been accepted. Now, as I mentioned earlier, even though we do have academic awards, we also have scholarships involving band, choir, color guard, several sports, whether it be football, basketball. And also, by the way, we just announced we're opening up an esports team. For those of you not in the know, that is basically the gamers world. So we are looking forward to starting that and hope that you're able to look into that if you have any interest. Now, last but not least, as we kind of wrap up our time here, I want to go ahead and put something on your radar that is absolutely underrated. In fact, I'm going to tend to slow down here just a moment. Excuse me, I got a question here. Let me go ahead and jump into this question here. When does the scholarship application process open? Such a great question. So for Faulkner University, it's begun. Basically, we're good to go. We at Faulkner want to be understanding of your schedule. We want to go ahead and be aware that life is happening, senior year is happening. So there is going to be a preferential awarding from now until December. Don't feel like if you miss that December line, that's you're missing out on something just huge, but you are missing out on a little something. So our applications for scholarships happened the moment you apply for Faulkner University itself. In fact, if you don't mind, give me just a moment here. Let me throw up a promo code in the website for you to apply at right now. So if you're interested in learning more about Faulkner and admissions counselor reaching out to you, please take a minute tonight. Go to faulkner.edu, go to the undergraduate application section. The way you know you have completed the application, at the very end, they're going to ask you for a promo code. Go ahead and use the promo code family. That's what we consider ourselves here, the Faulkner family. A little cliche, but absolutely true. But we call ourselves the Faulkner family. Go ahead, do that application, and the minute that application is submitted, your financial aid has officially been opened as well. Now, to complete it, we do require the FAFSA to be turned in. So a little clarification. Maybe I should have mentioned this with the institutional aid. For Faulkner University, not only do you get academic scholarships, not only do you get extracurricular scholarships as well. We understand that a private university could go ahead. That term is a little alarming. I mentioned earlier, my upbringing, I never would have considered myself at a private school. I went to a public school in Texas with 5,000 kids. We graduated where the San Antonio Spurs used to play. That's how big our school was. And so if you would have told me my freshman year of high school, I would have been at a private school, never would have taken that seriously. But at Faulkner, we don't want finances to be the reason why you're not able to attend Faulkner, especially if you realize it is going to be a good fit for you. So we offer something potentially called University Grant. This is need-based scholarships that is informed by your FAFSA. So guess what, guys? Even if you missed on money from the government, that doesn't mean you missed out on more money from Faulkner University. Now, there is a window where perhaps your information is a little too high where even we could come in and help. But for the record, there are families who missed out on government aid. That doesn't mean they missed out on Faulkner additional aid as well. So that's a very good question that kind of spun a couple of other answers as well. When does the scholarship application process open? For us, it opens the minute you apply, continues on until you turn in everything. Now, keep in mind, other schools do have different dates. All right. Please keep the questions coming. I would rather answer your questions than just answer and give information for what I think is important. I would rather answer your questions. So last but not least, what I want to go ahead and discuss very briefly is that fourth leg. The first one was FAFSA, government aid. Second one was state aid, living in the state of Alabama. The third one is institutional aid. How many scholarships can you get from a single place? Not a bad place to start, but again, we need to diversify. So that brings us to number 4, family and outside contribution. Remember, at the end of the day, it is you as the individual and the student who's going to benefit the most. So there needs to be a little hustle on the student's end as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're by yourself. That doesn't mean you have to go ahead and straight up cut a check by yourself from dad, from mom, and do it all on your own. In fact, don't feel like it's the one that you have to make all at once. It's a big task and it's worth it, but be sure to break it down to manageable steps. And I think that's my main point for this evening. So here are a couple of different websites I would love to encourage you to be at. Let me go ahead and take off this caption here. That way you can read it a little bit better. Pro tip. Open up a brand new email account. Don't use the one you have currently. Go ahead and open up a brand new one. Be it your name, scholarships@gmail.com. And what you're going to do next is go to these websites and create a profile. Let me share a quick story as you're taking a look at this, where you're doing a screenshot or writing them down. We had a young lady a couple of years back who, once FAFSA was in, once she turned in her ACT, once she's done everything that is required of a student, she had a little bit of a balance left, and she was determined to make it absolutely zero. She did not want to pay a dime out of pocket. She was determined to make it zero. So what she informed us is that her summer year, I think it was between junior and senior year, what she ended up doing was every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., her full-time job became applying for these scholarships. She went to every single one of these websites. She picked up the phone and called up Rotary clubs, Lions clubs. If I could be a little bit honest, basically where rich older folks tend to gather, that's a good place to go ahead and try to get some scholarships. And that was her hit list, day in and day out. That's what she would do every single day. And she told us she applied to about 300 places. Out of those 300, she only heard back from about 12 to 15, somewhere around that dozen mark. And you got to think about it. That is really heartbreaking to put so much heart, so much effort into that, and to hear back from so few places. However, from those 12 to 15 places, things were covered. For 3 years straight, she had nothing to worry about because now she had all four legs to stand on. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. And that's the reality of this world of financing your college. You're going to have your heart broken a little bit, but you need to put yourself out there. This is the prime time. September, October, November are prime times to go ahead and do these applications at these websites. Go ahead and also reach out to your guidance counselor. I'm guessing your school probably did something called a baccalaureate last year with the seniors. It was the time where the seniors were recognized for all their scholarships and awards from the local area. Guess what? You just found yourself a new hit list if that was the case. Go ahead and ask the guidance counselor for the local area names of, hey, what car dealerships offering a scholarship? Or maybe you're like one of the young men I recruited from Mobile, one of the guys on the football team. We had this exact same conversation. And he came back to me in March saying, hey, Matt, I got myself a PetSmart scholarship. And that actually threw me. I had never heard about that one before. I don't know if he bathed a cat, walked a dog, but he did something for PetSmart that got him $500. And I know that doesn't sound like a terribly huge chunk of change, but guess what, guys? That is $500 that young man didn't have to come out of pocket himself. So please, do not take these lightly. Do not sleep on these. I know senior year is going to be busy, but guess what? It's going to be busy no matter what you do. You might as well take a few steps that future you is going to be grateful for, and probably your parents also. I bet a lot of parents who are watching this now or later on would really, really appreciate you doing this. And guess what? It could be really simple. Turn on some Spotify, put on some Netflix, invite some friends over, just get some pizza and knock out the essays. Do the photo scavenger hunt. There's a scholarship in Alabama. If you're over 6'3", there's the tall scholarship. If you're left-handed, there's a national scholarship for being left-handed. There are so many different ones out there, including how to survive the zombie apocalypse essay. Really, there's so many that it tends to be overwhelming. What you need to do is take a breath, focus, and just apply yourself. And I know that's a little too simplistic, but sometimes the most impactful things are simple in concept, but not necessarily easy to follow through with. And I'm encouraging you to follow through with it. So as we're kind of wrapping up discussions, I definitely want to take any more questions that you might have. I just want to share a little bit about Faulkner University itself. We are a small Christian university. So at the end of the day, this is what makes us different from any other school. I firmly believe that any school you're considering right now, if you focus, if you dedicate your time, if you study, you're going to be a successful individual. You're going to get your college degree and you're going to be a successful whatever it is. The difference with Faulkner University, though, and I don't know if you could quite see him over my head, but there's a picture of Dr. Williams, our president, behind us. When he shakes your hand on graduation day, what we're aiming for is not only to make you successful in your career. What we're praying for, what we're hoping for is that when you go out into that world, you're going to be successful not only for yourself, but for the community around you. That is the center of our faith-based education. We understand that you're going to be a businessman, businesswoman. We understand you're going to be in the health sciences. Maybe you're interested in our physical therapy school or a physician assistant school. You are going to go out in the world and be a professional. What we're hoping that you don't forget is to keep the main thing, to keep yourself Christ-centered, with faith, and let that guide you through your career and through the decisions you need to make. And what you're going to be able to find here is close relationships and mentorships. I know it's, again, become a little bit of a cliche that you're not just a number here, you're a name. I think Faulkner takes it one step further. I think we're able to go ahead and say that you're not just a name, you're a soul. And we really care for you. We want to get to know you. We want to encourage you to do your best and do so from a Christ point of view. So one thing you should know about Faulkner University is that you're going to have some great interactions with your professors. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that the network here is absolutely amazing. Living on campus, we have somewhere about 900 students, which is perfect in my opinion, because you're not struggling to find parking. You're able to go to the cafe and get a meal pretty quickly. Now, a lot of things that people don't realize is that Faulkner is able to go ahead and also provide educations in several campuses as well, in the Mobile, Huntsville, and Birmingham. However, those are specifically for adult students. So perhaps you're a parent watching this right now. Keep in mind, we do have some campuses in that area. Also, on the back end, on the master's side, we do have things such as law school, speech language pathology, physician assistant, physical therapy, master's in business administration, criminal justice, and education. We're also located in Montgomery. Maybe you didn't know that, but it is a capital city, which, if you're talking about networking, this is a great place to be. Not to digress on the concept of getting your education, but it's not always about what you know, it's who you know. And again, this small atmosphere allows us to connect you with some very, very helpful individuals in the career. Again, fact of the matter is, people are going to look perfect on the brochures. They're going to look great on the website. And what I'm encouraging you to do is take a moment to break it down, to go ahead and really analyze who's there, who's going to be able to help you out, and be able to go ahead and understand that school on a personal level. Is there any more questions I could be helpful with? I know we've definitely crossed that time frame by about 5 minutes, but hopefully this has been helpful in some way. Any questions? Let me give you a minute here. Well, all right. Well, guys, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Matthew Lean. That is not necessarily easy to read out loud, so most people call me Matt O. You could reach me at the number above, 334-721-3475. And you can also email me as well. If you don't mind, give me just a second. I am once again going to go ahead and throw our website and the promo code. That way you could go ahead and apply tonight. This promo code is going to be lasting for the next week, but we would rather you do it today rather than later. But we understand that you've got a lot going on this senior year. Yes, we share your email right there, mogeen@faulkner.edu. Please reach out to me. I may not be your direct admissions counselor. That's okay. I'm going to help you anyways. I'm going to make sure you get connected with who you need to be connected with. And we understand that sometimes you don't know where to start. So let us be awkward for you, as clearly my session with you tonight has slightly been. But I'm okay with that, because if it means getting you guys a little closer, I definitely want to do that for you guys. Well, I definitely love you, even though I don't know you, but I love you with the love of the Lord, and praying for you and your family. I pray that you stay safe, COVID free. I've had it myself, don't recommend. And I really hope that this senior year for you seniors is everything that you hope for it to be. And it might not be that way right off the bat, but fight for it. Make it all that you can be. And also, don't be afraid to take a moment to break away and plan for your future. You got to go ahead and give yourself that break, give yourself that credit. You have so many people behind you, you probably don't even realize it. That includes strangers at universities. And I can't speak for every place, but I can speak for Faulkner, and I can speak for myself when I say we definitely want to help you navigate these waters. We understand that it could be overwhelming, and we don't want you to do it alone. And even though we're absolutely biased, we want you here. We understand it might be another place that you're destined for, but we're going to try very hard to see if Faulkner could be that fit. It's not for everybody, but it's for someone, and it could be for you. Guys, thank you so much for your time this evening. Please email me tonight if you have any follow-up questions. Love you so much. God bless. And soar Eagles.